Welcome to That's Joy, the podcast. I'm your host, Cece Calbanero, and I'll be sharing stories of miracles, God moments, and unpacking the truth behind what joy truly means. My friend, when God gives you a direct call on your life, be sure to answer it. Here's to answering my call together. Hello, and welcome to That's Joy, the 100th episode. I cannot even believe that I get to say that with you guys right now. I mean, 100 episodes is a big feat, and it has been a little over 2 years now since we've gotten here, and we've gone through seasons where we've released every week. I've gone through seasons where I was bi-weekly, and with short breaks in between, and that has landed us this sweet spot where you have clicked play. First and foremost, it would not be right if I did not extend my gratitude first to every single one of you who this has reached, who this podcast platform has touched in any way. I did not expect to get emotional by any means. Only 2 minutes into this episode, but here we are. I can't even fully wrap my mind around the impact that this podcast has taken place in this city, in this country, and in other countries around the globe. When I look back at insights and I see how many of you have listened in South Africa, in the Philippines, in Canada, and all over the United States and more, it's just beyond me. It's beyond anything that I could have ever asked, thought, or imagined. And it's been imperfect in a lot of ways too. And I'm going to dive into that on this episode. And on this 100th episode, you may have found yourself at the very first That Short podcast that you have ever listened to. If that is the case, welcome. You are welcomed here, and I am so grateful that of all the podcasts, which happens to be millions at this point, you have clicked play for this one. And for that very reason, I'll extend a giant thank you to you for taking a chance on this and on this podcast. I have a feeling that the word joy popped out to you, and it's something that you're looking for. And so if you're new around here, you might not know this, but we love kicking off every episode of That's Joy with a little joyful noise. Joyful noise is our version of good news. What are the good things that are happening? How do we highlight more of that? And this week's is, we've reached 100 episodes, okay? I don't have anything spicy or new for y'all outside of that, because holy moly, that is worth the celebration in itself. And so I hope that there is something that you're doing today that you are going to find the joy, count the joy, and not only those things, but be the joy wherever you find yourself today. And I hope that it drips just not beyond, beyond just today. And it drips into your entire week and your month. And my prayer is it would drip into your life. And so thank you for being here. It means the world to me. I am your host, Cece, and I feel so utterly grateful to be in the driver's seat of this whole thing. And let's be real, God is in the driver's seat. I just happen to be riding shotgun and trying my best to listen to the navigation system that He's given me. But today I wanted to share a few lessons that I've learned over the last 100 episodes. Now, it would be quite impossible to cover the entirety of all of the lessons that I've learned in a single episode, so I'm not going to do that. But what I really felt in my heart, honestly, this morning I woke up and I was like, man, Hebrews 12 specifically. And before I even dive into somewhat of the lessons that I've learned, I just wanted to take a second to read through Hebrews with you. And specifically it's chapter 12. It says, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. Friends, this scripture always just strikes such a chord with me. Specifically the line that says, "And let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us." And I get so curious, right? Like, what this race is all about. How many people will actually step out onto the track field, let alone not just step out, but when that gun goes and he says go, how many people are actually willing to not only run, but to run like they're ready to win? I don't know about you guys, but I watched the Olympics with my husband and we were so to get up. And honestly pretty bummed when it ended, because it just became like a routine at that point after 2 weeks of consuming it within the pockets of our day and then every evening. But track was so incredible to me, how God, one, designed our bodies to operate in the way that they are capable of, but then two, the level of talent, commitment, dedication, perseverance, motivation, every word under the sun, these people not only like walked out but lived out, you know? Like, they wouldn't have gotten to that pinnacle of success in their lives had it not been for the treacherous storms that they have walked through and built up, like, the strength within those seasons to get to where they are. I just think that there's a race set out for all of us. And as I look back at the shotgun going off on March 7th, 2022, for that joy, like the start of the race, I look back at that very first episode when I flew out to Dallas underneath my own dime without much stakings to have a recording in person with someone who I admire and look up to so much, Trent Shelton. And with barely any equipment or any processes in place, I said, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna figure it out, I'm gonna record it, and I'm gonna pray and ask the Lord what he wants me to ask him, and I'm gonna have a conversation. And it's gonna be a conversation. And y'all, that was in February of 2022. And it is now August of 2024. I mean, it's just so wild to me how much life has taken place in these last 2 years and how this race has been. I mean, obviously, when the scripture's pointing to this, it's talking about the great picture of your life being the race. But as I look at these micro moments, kind of like these chapters within, they're all like mini races leading up to the marathon, you know? Like, you can't step out on the race and expect to run 26.2 miles. You gotta start by first starting with 1 mile. All right, how did you do 1 mile? Let's do 3 miles now. All right, how does that feel? Let's do 6 now. You know what I mean? And so I'm in a phase right now where it feels almost like from second mile after that story, we're going on to our 3rd mile. We'll reach the 100th episode, and I've learned so much. And so my hope and prayer in this episode is, one, to make it short and sweet. I know that a lot of y'all over the span of the many episodes that we've had really enjoy that you can listen to these podcast episodes in 25 minutes or less. And honestly, I really love those episodes too. I think that they're powerful. You can fit them into your lunch break, your early morning walk, or your evening walk, and I love that so much. And what I love too is that we'll still have a boatload of interviews coming up with certain guests and different things like that. And so those typically will run longer for those episodes. But this one today, I just wanted to give you a couple keys, honestly, some that you're not going to necessarily expect, that will hopefully give you the courage to run with everything you got, because that gun has already went off. All right, so the first thing is I wanted to talk about when I first started That's Joy. You guys, when I first started That's Joy, I shared this story numerous times on here, but I had a podcast with a best friend even before this platform, and it was successful. We were doing great. The branding was on point. We built a community, and then God said, lay it down. I was like, wait, but it's a good thing. It could be great. But a good thing didn't mean that it was a God thing. And in several ways, my best friend felt nudged to go into a different area. Now she's an author, her book is out in the world, and it's just so cool to see what God has done through that little act of obedience that actually amounted to so much more than a little. And it was 2 years ago where I felt the nudge to lay down that good podcast to pick up this God calling. And I knew that it had the word joy in it. And I was working closely with Ashley Hetherington at the time, and we walked to the W Hotel, and I just told her, I feel like I'm supposed to rebrand, go solo, and I know the word joy is in this. And so she helped me vision cast, and I said, all right, I'm going to give myself 90 days to figure it out so I can kind of stretch out the goals and the things that need to take place in order to rebrand List with Excellence and launch it with joy. And so I took 90 days to prepare and do a lot of the things behind the scenes. And I know that for any creative who is listening to this, even if you started an Instagram account before, then you know what it takes to build behind the scenes for the moment where it sets on stage, right? And so I did that. And I just remember that when I first started, there was still so much hesitation. Y'all, there was so much hesitation when I started That's Joy, just because I'm not someone who is going to sit in a chair and say, I audibly hear the voice of God. Friends, the truth of the matter is that I do my very best to listen to the voice of God in my life. And I am almost certain, but I don't think that anyone can say 100% that they are completely certain that that was the voice of God. I had a friend recently ask me last week just about how I discern the voice of God in my life. And, that's such a powerful question. And it's one that I am forever in the classroom of learning that. I just think that I will be 80 years old, 90 years old, still learning what it means to understand the voice of God in my life. But what I do know to be sure that God has shown me is that these little nudges amount to something. And so there were these nudges on my heart that I knew I could shake. And as I got closer and closer to that March 7th date, which, by the way, let's rewind for a second. I got to that March 7th date simply because I felt a nudge to say, pick a date. It wasn't that it was March 7th or anything crazy fell from the heavens that marked March 7th. I just felt nudged to pick a date. Because the truth of the matter is, for any goal that you have in life, if you do not pick a date and say when you're going to do something by, you're never going to actually do it with excellence. Because that's the thing, friends, we've got to have a target in place to know what we're marching towards. And give us the time and the urgency to actually put those actions into place and into play, right? So anyhow, I am going, and I'm building up this podcast, and I'm ready to launch it. And I still have moments of, oh my gosh, is anyone going to listen? Oh my gosh, did I say everything that I wanted to say? Maybe I could have said that better. Maybe I could have made the intro a little bit better. Maybe I could have spent more time researching a better sound. Maybe I could have looked up different titles. Maybe I could, and it didn't happen. And I share that with you because I want to remind you, anyone that you listen to, anyone that has content put out into the world, they also have had thoughts similar to those before. And I want to share that with you, not to discourage you, but actually to do the opposite. I hope to God that it encourages you and says, oh my gosh, I can relate to that. That resonates, right? We all have had these hesitations in our lives and these doubts creep in. And I was listening to another big podcast. She has several millions on Instagram and YouTube, and I'm sure her podcast has millions of views as well. And she had said on an interview, I am scared and I have fear every single day. But you know what? I've just decided that I'm going to do it all anyway, even with the fear. And I thought that that was so profound because I want, if you get nothing else from this podcast episode today, to know that even with the fear inside of your head, and maybe there are strips of it inside of your heart, you are not alone in that. And we could actually continue to go even with those emotions within us and not allow that to hold us back from pursuing all that God has called us to pursue. We've got to keep our eyes fixed on Him and go anyway and do it anyway. And so there are 4 things that are almost guaranteed when you decide to run. And I mean run like the Olympian for your life, right? I'm not saying only a gold medal or that is even important in this life. What I am saying and talking to is the characteristic traits that are within all of those Olympians. And it's that level of determination and grit. What I love so much about this last Olympics, I didn't watch the previous one much before this, but with this one, I did notice how many people would give the glory back to God. Y'all notice that? There were so many Olympians who literally gave the glory to God for their win, and recognizing that they would not be where they are had they not had their faith. And so I think that the through line with a couple of these lessons is that they're all guaranteed. The first one that I want to highlight is getting tired when you start running a race. It's guaranteed. And again, I want that to invite you to the table, because you can be tired. You will get tired as you're pursuing that very thing that God is calling me to. Friends, as I look back over the stretch of the last 2 years of creating podcast episode as consistently as I can throughout the seasons of life that I've been in, I have countless times where I have been tired. I've been tired. There's been moments where I've recorded a podcast episode Sunday night around 8 p.m., needing to edit it night before to launch it out on Monday morning at 3 a.m. And yes, I schedule it. I don't push it through at 3 a.m. But I share that with you because I want you to know that yes, there are so many times where I'm tired and I don't really want to put something out. I don't really want to think about the content and what I'm going to say. But for some reason, I dig deep and I find a place that says, I'm just going to do it anyway. Because I know and have my eyes fixed on the vision in. And I think that's why it's so important that we remember without a vision, people perish. Because we've got to have the grand vision in our lives at all times. And it doesn't mean that you don't have moments of weakness or doubt or fear creep in. It just means that the vision's so great that even with all those things, you're gonna keep pressing on. You're gonna keep moving forward. And so you know what the next thing is that's guaranteed? The next thing is that you're gonna lose people along the way. And that's just guaranteed. Now, whether it means that people blatantly walk out of your life, or it means that a drift of some sort has occurred, you're going to lose some people along the way. And I wish that I would have heard that with more emphasis sooner, because I think it would allow me to hold people with less of a grip like this and more of a grip like this. Because the truth of the matter is, I want my palms go through everything. Because I think the moment they start going like this, it's trust in self. When we close our fists to try to hold on to things, rather than leaving them open and letting them sit there, I think that's a surrendered posture. I think that this posture right here says that God, have your way in everything. Like, I don't have kids yet, but I'm even thinking, like, even to be a parent and to hold your kids like this, it doesn't allow God to move how He wants to move. They fed him a cue, and so we must hold everything that we love like this. And of course, it's so much easier said than done, but I think that God can do so much more when we're in a posture like this. The third thing that is guaranteed is that you're going to go through hard. Hard is a guarantee. Now, the extremities of how hard looks in your life, whether it's a level 1 or a level 10, is solely up to you and the experiences that you have walked through in this life. A level 5 for me can be a level 10 for you, it can be a level 2 for you. It just differentiates so much. But if you can keep your eyes on Jesus and remember that it will get hard, I think that you will step onto that track and start running the race with a lot more peace, and knowing that if you cross a bumpy patch, if your shoes become a bit untied, if you trip over your toe, you know that those things are coming because you've already been told that it's going to be hard. So that's not going to trip you up, and that's certainly not going to stop you. You just know, all right, it's just a hard patch. I'm getting through what I knew was coming, and there will be an end because I know my God, right? It's remembering that. So going through the hard is guaranteed. I don't want you to forget that. The fourth one that is also a guarantee is feeling lost along the way. I know that there's several moments as I look back at the last 2 years and 100 episodes of That's Joy where I've had whispers, whether they be from the enemy or just the pit in my reckless human mind. I'm not exactly sure. But there were moments of doubt, friend, where I'm just like, you want me to keep doing this, God? You want me to keep showing up? And there's a vision so big with That's Joy that the Lord planted as a mustard seed 2 years ago that I just can't shake. And until I feel a nudge so big as that vision was planted to ever lay it down, I need to remember that vision, cling to that vision. And on the days where I do feel a little bit lost, remember that. And so I share all of this. It might feel heavy, and you might be thinking, holy moly, I was not expecting these things to be the lessons. I'm glad that that's what you're thinking right now, because I think that it's making your brain tick a little bit more in ways that you may not have been thinking before. And I hope that you, as you've heard all of the ways that I have seen these things play out in my lives, I hope to God that you are like translating how these things have already happened in your life and how they're going to continue to happen. But yet this time, how are you going to have the correct perspective and lens to look at that race and say, even if those things happen, because they will, I will still keep my pace, and I will be in pace with God, right? He's gonna have you at 10 at some seasons. We're gonna bring it down to a 7 at some seasons. It's gonna be a 2 at some seasons where you feel a little break, but you don't stop. Not to encouraging to not stop and to keep going. Friends, what's the race marked out for you? Ask yourself that very question today. And I hope and pray that when you hear that done, and it goes off, you run with everything you got. I love you so much, and I'm so grateful that we get to celebrate 100 years together. Go to my Instagram. I'm doing a little something special if you're listening to this episode on the release day. So go check it out at CCALBONERO on Instagram and That's Joy the Podcast on Instagram. If you are not following me yet, go do that. If there's a certain part of this episode that you would want to know more about or have a singular episode dedicated to that, you can text me at 615-813-4813. You can join the Joy Quarter by going to that'sjoypodcast.com for my newsletter, and you can subscribe, rate, and leave a review. If you're like, holy moly, Cece, thank you for 100 episodes and committing to pressing that record button every time. You know how you could really thank me is running over to Apple Podcast and writing how this podcast has impacted you. It could be a sentence, like one sentence, or it could be a paragraph, like some of our friends have already left. Whatever it is, I say thank you for taking 2 minutes to go that extra mile for me. It means more than you know, and it amounts to the growth of this platform and this podcast that God has given me. So thank you for taking the time to do that. And you can leave a review as well on Spotify. It's just 5 stars. I'll never leave a That Joy episode without saying if you have even the smallest desire to be the creator of the universe, or if you've already been seen but you're not really free, I want to invite you to sit at the table with me and so many others. I'm telling you, there's abundance here. There's overflow here. There's so much joy here. I'm here to tell you that God is for you. All you have to do is stand in the mirror, right now. He's waiting for you. He wants to meet with you, and I am so, so proud of you. If you just made this decision, I'd love to know that you shoot me a text to that number in the show notes so I can pray for you. I love you. God loves you. And until next time, I'll talk to y'all next time. Thank you so, so much for being here.